put it on my page. It's on your personal, yeah?
It's on both my personal and my business right now because we're live. It's the Sarahs. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and today I'm very, 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 very excited because it's another episode of Consciousness Road Trip podcast, a special kind of series that I'm doing called How One Person Can Change the World. And my guest today's name is also Sarah. Welcome, Sarah Grandinetti.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. We were talking before because both of us are basically on the certified facilitator training for Access Consciousness right now. It's an online, that we're doing it online for the second time ever. And because it's in Houston, it starts at my 12:30 in the morning and goes until, 8:30 in the morning. So yeah, I've been a little bit like, and we're like, well, should we reschedule this? And I'm like, actually, this is the stuff that wakes me up. This is the stuff that, like, being in class, I'm like, when they ended today, I was like, I wanted them to keep going. It was very funny, like having Brendan, Simone, Dane, and Gary all facilitating together. It's out of this world. So I was like, please don't stop. But I'm excited to be here. And this is what lights up my world, having these conversations. So basically, I don't even know. I think I was in the shower or I was walking or something. And I thought of like this thing of like how much the world is in this place at the moment where so many people are recognizing the possibility of something different being available, something being right there that it's almost like if we could only grasp onto it and actualize it, something really different is available now. And so it started me thinking, like, how many people out there don't realize how one person can change the world? And so I wanted to just have these conversations and see what showed up. I've done one with my brother, Brendan Watt, and then Emily Russell, and now you. And every conversation is so different. And it's really just about delving into your world a little bit and talking about, like, what this brings up for you. So, yeah, like, is there anywhere you want to start?
Yeah, consciousness is cute, Sarah, because I just launched something called Wave Makers.
Uh-huh.
And the reason I say that is because even in the promotion of it, we're like looking at these people in our history across the world who were one person who knew something else was possible and who went after it. Cool. And so I've been having this conversation, and for those of you who don't know, Sarah messaged me and was like, I had this idea in the shower. Do you want to be on this? I was like, yes. And I had no idea until today what it was about. So it's just funny how
that works, how consciousness is like, yeah. And so let's start with that. Like those people that like have changed the trajectory or like whatever they've done where they've been like, I get something else here is possible, where when you make that choice or you recognize that possibility is available, how consciousness almost steps in and just like picks you up on this amazing, like how we actually are all very much interlinked with each other. And I don't know about anyone else, but right now is probably the most alone, quote unquote, I've felt in a very long time. And then I realized like also how much of that isn't actually mine, because then when I like these feelings, quote unquote, start coming up in my world about, oh my God, like I'm kind of, and then I look at it and I'm like, hang on. And then I like really look at it and I'm like, this is me. This makes me so happy. Like perceiving everyone around the world that is my friends and my peeps, people that I know really well, people that I don't know really well, like how much we're actually all connected.
Absolutely. And being that in that tool of who does this belong to, because we know how we all get together so often, and Access was so like ready and set up to go with our Zoom account. Like I'm watching people going, I don't know where to click, in this reality who have never been on Zoom. And we were like all ready. And it was like, we kind of just kept moving together. And in so many ways in these classes, I've been noticing how more connected I think we actually are.
Yeah.
It's funny that stuff will creep in where you're like, I miss this person and I feel so alone or disconnected, and using the tools to like move through that and actually it's been really fun.
Yeah. And even just having that tool of who does this belong to realize that it's not actually it's not true for you in a way, because there's a lot of things that have been in my world lately about that and money. And I'm like, And then, and just this like weirdness, like, I don't know, it's really kind of hard to explain. And and then you go there and you're like, oh, you know, this is wrong. And, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, hang on a second. Like, anyone that knows me knows, like, this right now is how I actually am. And then when I'm doing this other stuff, I'm like, wow, like, just how much it kind of works both ways, I guess, is what I would say. Like, this consciousness thing is also very much where you are so connected with everyone. You're also going to pick up on a lot of the shit that's going on in the world, basically. Yeah. And a lot of the ways people are just, creating weirdness.
Well, Dane always says how we like vibrate like tuning forks. And so if you're in a room with a bunch of happy people, it's a lot easier to choose happiness. And you like go to a room full of really sad people and miserable, and you start to feel like you're sad and miserable. And then the whole world shuts down and you start to feel like, what's happening? It's really slow, even though your life might, like, I've been busier than I've ever been, but everything around me seems to be going really slow. I said to a friend the other day, I was like, you know, when you're sitting in a car and the car next to you starts to back out and you think you're going forward?
Yes.
Like what it's been like working with Access and creating my own stuff and being like, oh my God, so much is going on. And yet the whole world has slowed down. We were already moving so much faster in so many ways. And so it's been really, really interesting. And the most basic tools have been moving it through. Even like body stuff has come up. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, how many people have like stopped moving, stopped getting out of their house, stop it all. And they're all like in their, you know, sadness, and we're just like vibrating at the same, like picking up on it, I guess is what I would rather say.
Yeah. And thank you so much. And that's why like these conversations are so amazing, because even you saying that about what Dane said about walking into a room of happy people, I just realized when you said that my neighborhood right now is fucking depressed. Like, I just perceived then when you said that, I was like, because the things in my world are like this loneliness, this money thing that's going on. And then I kind of just quickly tapped into everyone just in this, like the area I can, you know, in my close proximity, and just how much of that is really so loud in their world. So like also to look at that tool when this stuff comes up as well, like where you can then start expanding out, like, and really, because I find sometimes as well, the more aware we become, the more it becomes really uncomfortable, and you want to sort of like almost just be like, oh, it's too much. And you sort of like pull yourself in a little bit. And, you know, possibly this stuff's going on around the world a lot as well, which it probably is. But really then when you said that, the awareness that I got was like, wow, that's like my immediate surrounds right now is very much in that place. And now what if I, like, because every time it comes up, I've been willing to be with it, but it hasn't really changed. So now it's like, what if I was willing to just really like energetically expand right out, like big, and be willing to be way bigger in my awareness, and no matter how uncomfortable that gets or what comes up with it. Yeah.
Well, you know, can I share something with you?
Please.
Of course. Okay. I have a 9-year-old who's like super X-Men, has like a ton of capacities to pull in everybody's reality all around her. And so one of the things I always do with her, but then I forget to do with me, is when she's like getting really contracted, whether it's around pain in her body or around something she perceives, I'll ask her to fill the room. But for a 9-year-old, she's like, what do you mean? And I said, okay, close your eyes, go to wherever Uncle Dane is. And so then she'll energetically go there, and that expands her being like really, really big. So for our listeners, like if you're like going, what are you talking about? Expand out, like literally imagine you're in Bora Bora and perceive your being going that far out and touch down there, and then see how big you are. And looking at you right now, I was like, wow, you're aware of a lot of stuff, babe. You're on an island.
Yeah.
Right? And you guys have tighter borders in and out, right? There's none of that. So how much of that like is the intensities of what you're aware of, and also so connected to so many people in so many other places, which is really cool. So and with that energetic expansion, it's definitely one of my favorite kind of exercises or tools or whatever to use. And it's really like, I remember the first time I heard Gary and Dane talk about it, and they were like, you know, the minute you ask, it's done. You don't have to sit there and think, okay, Bora Bora, what's the weather like? You know, where am I standing? Like, it's just this thing of just ask for it and kind of go there. And if Bora Bora like is
like, or think of a place you love, like even if it's close by to start with. Like for me, maybe I think of where my horse lives, which is like 15, 20 kilometers from here, and I boom, expand out to there. I can perceive, I don't know what he's doing right now, but I can perceive the energy of being in that space as well. So when like talk about this as a capacity, and especially like using the example of your daughter, like how does this stuff, you know, and tying it back into how one person can change the world, when we're willing to be that space energetically, what do you get that creates differently in a way?
I love that question. So I do a lot of being you classes. And so so that's like, I was like loving this topic, girl. Because I think we're so brought up to sameness, to aligning, agreeing, to finding your people that are the same as you. And then we start to become homogenized with our capacities that make us the difference that we require to be, to create any amount of change. So take that room full of sad people. Somebody comes in willing to expand out, willing to be as big as they be as a being, and just be a space with the sadness, receive it, but then not have to go into it. There can be 100 people in the room sad. One person walks in with a different point of view, and you'll start to see the algorithm of the sadness start to like shift and change. And people are like, maybe I don't have to choose that. Maybe I could be different. Maybe, and that's the invitation we all can be when we're willing to be us and not do this, like this aligning, agreeing with this reality, or resist and react and put up a fight. There's so much more space and invitation in that.
I love it. That right there is basically the best place to start with this stuff, I think. Like really the best place to start to just play with, like, you know, every time something comes up, and it can be a physical thing or something you perceive, think, whatever your terminology is there, what you're aware of, and just ask. Like with me, like this walking around my house and just being like this place of like closed-inness about money or being by myself, and then like just going, hang on a sec. And okay, so let's talk about question, I guess, because I saw a post on Instagram. Saul Wynne Jones was doing an Instagram live or something, and he said something about how do you reconnect with your body, or how do you know you're being. Everything for me comes back to a question as well. Like anywhere where I go to anything, if I can just ask a question, any question, it doesn't even have to be, you know, the right question, like just anything, how much that really will just shift it. Like all you really need to do is be willing to be aware that something is off or whatever, like an energy comes up, a feeling, an emotion, a thought, like whatever that is, and the willingness to ask a question. And that's why I was just laughing at myself today, because I'm like, you know, we do this amazing stuff called Access Consciousness, and, you know, we're both facilitators. You know, this is basically what we do in this world and who we be in this world. And it's so funny because I still do the shit of like, and then I just laugh at myself. I'm like, okay, Sarah, what if you just like used a tool here and asked a question? So with that, and I mean, it was, and like, it could be anything, like, what did I say? Like, oh, I love what's right about this I'm not getting, and what's right about me I'm not getting. Because you go to that place of like, I'm wrong, I'm fucked up, I'm all alone, I've got no money, and then I'm like, what's right about me I'm not getting? And straight away I'm like, holy shit, it's not even me right now. It's just this, yeah. So like, what is question for you?
Great. Well, question for me, like, was not a way that I was willing to live before. I was always looking, a lot of us, right? Always looking for the right answer, narrowing everything down to 2 choices, and then weighing those over, like, you know, mind messing with yourself so hard to try to like take all the gazillion possibilities of the universe, pull them into 2 choices, and then go A or B, A or B, A or B, and then ask what friends thought B was the right answer, what friends thought A was the right answer, and then do all of the crazy, and then finally make a choice. And it was never from question; it was narrowing down possibility, basically. Yep. And so when I'm in classes, and I have, because the Being You classes, there's no prereq, so a lot of people come in and have never been taught to even question anything. They've been told what's right, they've been told what's wrong, and to live their life from that barometer. And so one of the things I say a lot is that when I'm explaining, like starting to ask a question, how I started to play with it in my own life is when there would be any amount of intensity. Like I played with my husband for a little bit, but like if he had any amount of intensity or my kids were really upset about something, I would turn to them and say, hey, what's your favorite color? And they would be like, what? I'm upset about some, like, you know, the neighbor just made me mad. Why are you asking favorite color? But I would be like, or hey, what's your favorite ice cream? Asking them a question actually does an algorithm interrupt, and you can't even stay in the upset if you ask them a question that's going to bring them joy. Hey, tell me the name of your horse. And then you're like, hold on a second, I'm mad about my money right now. Then
or I'm like, which horse? No.
You're like, oh, and then that is enough of a break in the energy for you to look at it and make a different choice. And so some of my favorite questions is, if I were truly being me here, what would I choose? If I were truly being me here, what would I be aware of? Because I have a unique awareness that I now can acknowledge that I couldn't acknowledge for so long until I started really being with the tools of access. But my unique awareness will bring me back to me and the energies of me and what I'm aware of. And having that space is, I can look at anything from there. But when I'm in the crunch of the world and taking on everybody's problems and pulling them out, like body pain out of their bodies, and I'm all, rah! You know, like the money thing that you're talking about right now is so funny, because I've made more money during COVID than I've ever made. And I still have it like, oh my God, money problems. I'm like, hold on, what's actually true right now?
Yeah. And I love what you were saying there, like how all of this is really about creating and, well, kind of like finding, recognizing, creating, choosing, actualizing what your reality is in this world. And it's the same with money. It's the same with everything. Like when you're willing to be that question and be that energy that we talked about at the start as well, you start to almost like, it's almost like something, I don't know, I'm going to use like a cooking analogy here because I can't think of anything else, but it's almost like the ingredients start showing up and you start being like, okay, that actually feels more like me. Like that feels like me. So I'm going to like almost pull that in, and it then starts to become part of your day, like of you. And so I'd love to hear more about the Being You specialty. Like, I feel like that's something that, like, talk a little bit about that, because I've done a lot of access, you know, I've read Dane's book. So wherever you want to go with it, I would just love you to talk more about that, basically.
Okay. It's my jam. It's my favorite. Well, what I've noticed with the Being You stuff is that the Being You content, the classes, the book, all of the gifts of that specialty is that so many of us are trying to get us right, not get us wrong, fix the past of who you used to be so that you can get you right to who you want to be. And like all of the crazy and all of the judgment, the self-judgment is really what we like judge ourselves. And in judging ourselves, we like throw a pothole out in the middle of the road of our life, so that we definitely have to dip in to the right and the wrong in order to slow ourselves down to never create what's possible. And so I've had a lot of people come through classes that have been like, I did this specialty, or I did that, or I did this. And then here I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had this before I did all that. Even CFs who come in and say, oh, I've been trying to be CF like somebody else, you know? And so starting to pull those points of view that you think are so true about you, because you don't even remember buying it, and you definitely don't have a receipt to return it. So you just like decided that it was you, start, you know, move and shift, and you can go into question and possibility about the greatness and bigness of your being. And so, like, Being You classes are so also, in my interesting point of view, so much fun. And it's just exploring the greatness of everybody around you, but with no separation, with that oneness, having each other's backs, and really getting to what is true for you, the being.
So talk a little bit about getting to that place too, because I kind of get the sense a lot of people hear this and they're like, oh my God, this is like, you know, everything that I've been, if you've been seeking anything, this would match that energy of what you've been looking for in some way. But so many things that you go to that talk to you about self-development, becoming a better person, becoming, what do some of them say, a better version of you, or living your best life, or something like that. Talk about, like, because we're so different, how does that journey look in a way? Even though I know it's like totally not really something you can describe.
Well, no, it's fun because, you know, so this reality does role models. Okay. So we go, hey, when you're a little kid, who's your role model? You know, I remember getting like shamed because I wrote my role model paper in like 6th grade about my grandmother rather than like a superstar, right? They ask you, you know, if you could have lunch with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be? What do you want to be when you grow up? But then people will be like, oh, I want to be like this person. So we grow up and we have this projection of all these other people who've got it right, basically. It's a good judgment. And a lot of our good judgments stick us way harder and stronger than the things that we want to avoid that we think are bad and wrong, right? So we calculate our lives and we project futures based on a lot of the role models of what people who've come before us have created. And we're like, okay, cool. If I get myself close enough to what they're doing, if I'm a singer and I sound enough like them, if I'm an actor and I look enough like them, or whatever it is, like if you look out at anybody and measure something that's unique, it'll never actually have the gift that it came to be. You know, I say in the class all the time, I'm like, it's so funny. Like we as beings are so like not willing to be like different. We want to be same all the time. But then like if a diamond doesn't jump out of the like case in the jewelry store and say like, oh my God, take me back. I'm one of a kind. Don't buy me. I'm the worst. You know what I mean? And like, no, we dive at the one of a kind things. When a car comes off the assembly line, there's only 4 made. People are like, I've got that one. But when we are beings, we're like, hold on a second. Let me figure out who I can compare myself to in order to get this reality right. And I did it. I owned a hair salon in LA. I projected my future at these hairstylists that were doing these big things. I went after doing hair on set with celebrities, and it was always about somebody else. Like, so if you're out there and you're looking at your future and you're like ever measuring it by whether it's somebody in your family, whether it's a famous person, like for me as a hairstylist, it was not about what I was being at that time. It was about whose hair I had touched. And so like it was Sarah Grandinetti, here's all the like things that she had done in the industry that makes her valuable. But my value is like how I be with a body. My value is the conversations I have, the invitation I be, the space I be, and I would never have seen it without the tools of access because it would have always been measuring.
Yeah. And that's where it's also like it can change every day. Like I was talking to Emily on the previous episode, and it was sort of like where exactly this, like you pick this path and it's like this path that you're on this set journey of like, this is where I am and this is where I'm going. And what I love about this stuff as well is it can change. Like it can be like, well, you know, I'm a hairstylist, like that's what I do during the day. But, you know, today I'm going to show up and this is me. Like this is how I'm showing up today. And like talking about that in a way where really that's the main thing about changing the whole world, right? Like Absolutely. You don't need to solve world peace or win a Nobel Prize. And if you do, fucking awesome, good on you. And it's like this place of showing up as you and asking for more of that and greater of that every day.
Yeah, I actually have a cool story because a couple of years ago, like they started talking about the beyond this reality acknowledgement. Like what beyond this reality acknowledgement are you not giving yourself? And I was out to lunch with a friend and there was a waiter that was waiting on us. And I was a little bit flirty with him. And I'd given him like a lot of like acknowledgement and thanked him and acknowledged his beauty and, you know, had this like kind of cool rapport going on. And we got the bill, we paid, and my friend said, you realize you just totally changed his life, right? And I was like, girl, I might have made his day. I didn't change his life. Trust me. You know, I was like, this is like a 45-minute interaction. I'm like, I didn't change his life, you know? And then she asked me to look at something and she goes, hold on a second. She's like, before you sat down in his reality, would a beautiful woman like you have ever talked to him? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then we started to look at the walls and barriers that had melted in his world because he was able to receive me. And then this other, like, we walked it through to like who he gets to be in the world the next time another like beautiful woman sits down and how he has more space to be and to show up. And then his interaction with her and the way that it all just like the dandelion seeds just like sprinkle out. And that it's not about, like you said, you know, giving a speech on Capitol Hill that changes the bill. It's not about that. It's about the dandelion seeds that we can be, that we can spread out, that changes things.
Yep.
And it's way easier that way too.
Right. And it's like, And it's sometimes not even the necessity to speak to a person. Like I've even started playing with, and I spoke to on the episode with Emily a little bit about energy as well, and how, you know, it's the woo-woo stuff. It's the stuff that we're all aware of, but nobody's actually talking about a lot. And, you know, like so many practical tools and tips that we've given everyone here. And also what I am like refusing to refuse anymore is how much we function on energy. And like even like that engagement you had with him, what I get from that as well is it's almost like this energetic trail gets left behind. Like there's what happens in the moment, and then like you said, what happens from there. And there's like the things you can cognitize, like the things you get, like you being a beautiful woman and the way you interacted and boosting his confidence and all this stuff. But also it's almost like your energy almost leaves like this, like almost you think of like a shooting star or a comet or something like that, where they have that trail behind them. It's almost like when you're willing to be that level of you, it's almost like as you travel through the world, you just spread out over everything. And the other thing I've started playing with recently, Dane was talking about on something, because he's doing a lot of fucking brilliant stuff at the moment. And I'm basically like, dude, you're just on fire. I'm like, I think it was actually the Body Universe class, which is like seriously just anyway. And he was
awesome brothers.
We have awesome brothers. And I was thinking before the show, yeah, exactly. I was going to mention this, but I was like, if we started a girl band, we could call it the Sarahs. Going to all these places of like, because yes, basically, you know, my brother's Brendan, your brother's Dane, we're Sarah's. There's a lot of stuff here, a lot of things. Yeah. But Dane was talking about, he got us to do this energetic exercise of reaching out to something energetically. He said, like, basically wherever you're sitting, just look at something, and preferably something that you don't really have a point of view about. So like a plant or a water bottle or something like that. And like just reach out to it energetically and perceive it on an energetic level. And then he was like, did that change something? Like, did that change your interaction with that thing? And I was like, oh my God. So now when I'm out as well, without even having to talk to people or necessarily even like look at them or acknowledge them on that level, like, you know, we're taught to, you need to make eye contact and body language and blah, 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 blah. But just looking at like also shooting my energy out to people and things and connecting with them in that way as well. Like, yeah, this place where there's so much going on every day in everything that we do, and how that alone, just recognizing and playing with that stuff is really, for me, adding those ingredients to finding my reality. So, yeah.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be what we've decided it has to look like or has to be, you know, and it really is the choice to wake up and just ask for something different. Like, you know, what can I create today that creates that change and possibility that I'm aware of? And it can be how you interact with the mailman. It can be how you be with the cat in your house when you never leave. It can be, you know, how you answer the phone. It's not, you know, the significance that we put on being you changing the world. And I know this so well because I am the sister of the guy who wrote the book, who was out there changing the world. And I was like, oh, that's for Big Brother Dane, because he's the magical one. And I sat back and I was like, well, I'm not really doing a whole lot. Like, yes, I make people feel really beautiful in the salon every day, and I give them confidence, and I do my thing, but I'm not traveling, because that was how I thought you changed the world at that time. And that's not, it's your choice just to get out of judgment of you, takes judgment out of that amount of judgment, whatever poo pie of judgment that you have of you, it eliminates it from the planet. So the planet actually has less judgment on it if you would choose it. And judgment is killing, you know, possibility at minimum.
Yeah. And it's like when you talk about judgment in that way as well, thank you, because it gave me such more, you know, on this earth we talk so much about, and it definitely has a place, I'm not saying that, but about pollution and how we are definitely doing some really shitty things to this planet, definitely. And we talk about, you know, recycling and doing all of those things, which has their place, but how much does judgment actually, how much is it like the toxin on this planet, more than, like, if we were willing to start eliminating some of that stuff, like how much everything else would actually change way easier than it currently is. And when you talked about that judgment poo pie, it was like so clear that it really is, we carry around this huge amount of like pollution in our world. Like, it's like the judgments that we have, and 99% of the time it's the judgment of ourselves, because if you think you're judging other people, more likely than not you're just perceiving that poo pile of theirs, which I've learned. I'm like, I'm such a judgmental person, and then I'm like, hang on, maybe I'm actually just really aware and willing to, you know, perceive what people judge about themselves. But if we were willing to start to clean up some of that, like that pollution that we carry around, like how much the whole world would change, and those things possibly would, like the pollution and the degradation of this planet might change a lot easier as well, if we were willing to start with that with ourselves. So
yeah, I did it. I had a class last week in New Mexico, and I asked everybody if they believe it, whether they were aware of energies. And, you know, that thing, like, I was one of those people that was like, no, that's not me again, you know? Right. And so what I did was I would drop like a word bomb in the room, and I would ask them if something came up just by me saying one word. And they were all like, oh, so one of the words I threw out was like Hitler, and everybody was like, what, you know? And then I was like, butterflies, and they're like, oh. And I was like, so that's you aware of an energy, right? And so we all know people who judge us, but we decide that it's the bad, ugly, wrong judgments. Oh, those people, that girl is so, or that guy is so, and I don't like being around him because he makes me feel this way or whatever. But it's also these good judgments too, where you're like, oh, I'm only going to go be with this person because they see me as like right and perfect all the time, which actually, you know, lock you up as well. And so it's like really getting to that tool of interesting point of view that starts to break all this stuff up. If nobody had to be right and nobody was wrong, then we could have the space to create a planet and a, you know, life and living that was worth having. And if you think about like when you're with a bunch of happy people who are just receiving you, you know, you'd be crazy to think that the earth isn't picking up on that energy and receiving it the same way that we do when there's somebody there receiving us. Yep. So earth filled with happy people, I'll have it. I'm in. What can I do to contribute?
Exactly. Such a good question. I love what you said about the judgment thing. We go to judgment always being about the negatives, but positive judgment is just as, you know, just as big a pollutant in our worlds as well, because it's where we do all that stuff we spoke about earlier of really trying to fulfill other people's the way they see it, like their projections of us, and then we try to project that back out into the world. So this has been such an awesome conversation. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much. Is there anyone or anything else you'd like to mention for anyone out there, like, I don't know, looking for something different? And, you know, I almost went to say, is there a person that you want to acknowledge as being the person that has changed the world for you the most? And please, if that's light for you, go for it. And also, though, just how much, what if every day we woke up and asked, how can I be that person today? And, you know, when I spoke about this on the last episode as well, when Dane was on the Joy of Business Facilitator training earlier this year, he was talking about, you know, being like, what sort of life do you want to create? And he said, like, what if your desire was to create a life that was a gift to the world? And I was like, whoa, because for me, that just removed all definition of what that was, because it could be anything. A gift to this world could be anything. So yeah, is there anything else you'd like to, you know, end on, I guess?
Sure. Well, to add to that really quick before, Dane recently also said something so basic, but I like love basic. I love it. He was like, you're gonna live this life regardless. Like, you might as well figure out a way to enjoy it. You know, he's like, it's not like if you stay miserable that you're not gonna live another 20 years. So what are you gonna do with the 20 years? It was kind of like, okay, you know, just a different perspective. Well, you know, I think I'm probably pretty obvious here. Brought him up a ton of times. So but one thing that I'll say as far as acknowledging Dr. Dane here, who I have the pleasure of having as my big brother and the gift, Dane invited me to Access in 2000. He invited me to the bars in 2000, and he started creating with Access, and he started, and you know, his life changed, and I like loved him and adored him so much. I was like, go change your life, and I'll see you on the flip side. Not on the flip side, in another life, but like meaning like when you let him pitch back down to California, I'll see it. And he was so amazing. Like his life was getting bigger and bigger, Sarah, and he would, every time he would touch down in Los Angeles, he would call me from the airport. Almost all of our conversations almost happened from the airport. And he was calling me. I wasn't reaching out trying to grab my brother and like hold on to him. He was making the effort to call me. And, you know, I'm a mother of four, business owner. I like had this reality spinning all the plates all the time. So I wasn't doing the like nurturance of the relationship the way that he did. And what I share a lot in classes is it was 2000 that happened. I didn't take my first Access class until 2008, and then didn't choose to become a facilitator till 2016. I go in 8-year increments, I guess. Watch out, 2024. But the thing was that he never separated from me. He never judged me. He never told me, oh, you know what, you missed the bus, you missed the boat. He allowed me to call him with talk about poo pies. My new thing is like, I was like, I would deliver him a new poo pie and a different turtleneck like every week, you know, because like this is what was like so bad, you know, and then he wouldn't ever be like, you fucking idiot, you know what I mean? He would just, okay, how can I contribute? Receive me so much. And what that gift was, if I didn't make those years where I like sat on the sidelines wrong, what I received from Dane in those years was an amazing, beyond this reality amount of allowance. Yep. And in receiving that, I get to now be that. And I get to be that for people because I have the resonance in my world. And that's the gift that man has given to me and continues to give to me over and over and over again as he, you know, contributes to so many people. And so if I were to leave our show with a gratitude shout out, it would be for him, for everything he is, for the invitation he is to so many, the gift that he's been with me with allowance so that now I can go out and be that invitation for others.
Awesome. And I will back that up tenfold. I mean, I've got so many stories about that man and him not, I'll just tell one really quickly. I was at an event somewhere and I'm not going to say exactly where or what because anyway, so I was at this place and I was there with some people and Dane was there as well. And I remember sitting and there was, you know, people were up and dancing and there was stuff going on. And he was sitting, you know, to my right and the people I was there with were sitting to my left and I was kind of sitting in the middle. And I looked at him and he had his selfie stick and he was filming things and he was like being him, like 150 billion% Dane, not saying a fucking word, just sitting there filming over here, just being him. And I looked at him and it was just like this, like, and what I love about this as well is anywhere you can see something in someone else, that's you, because you couldn't see it if you did. And I remembered that. I remembered hearing that and I saw this thing in him of him being him and was like, holy shit, that's it. And then I looked to the other side with these people that I'd chosen to go to this event with and spend a lot of time with and kind of where they function from, like on an energetic level or something. And I looked at them and then I looked back at him and then I looked and it was just like this thing of like, no one said a word and my whole world changed. And I was like, whatever that is, like whatever that man is being right now, that is what I'm asking for. That's where I'm headed. That's what I'm going for. And yeah, so he wrote a book called Being You, Changing the World, which, you know, in turn turned into a specialty within Access Consciousness. He's the co-creator of Access Consciousness. So if you got, his website is just danehere.com or is it Dr. Danehere?
Dr. Danehere.
drdanehere.com, and I'll put it in the notes because I would encourage anyone as well, if you've never checked out his stuff or if it's been a little while, there is so much free stuff he does as well. He does a series on YouTube called Tour of Consciousness. It's a video that he releases randomly every couple of weeks. You know, he's got stuff, you can download the first chapter of his book read by him. You can get the audio of his book, which is what I did when I was first reading it. I play it in my car every single day. So yeah, I totally, you know, as far as one person changing the world, it's like he is someone that I just adore. And where you talked about at the start, like wanting to be him, there is nowhere in my world that exists. It's such this different energy of him being a total contribution to my world and never asking me to be anything except me. So yeah.
Me too.
So good job, lady. Good choice in big bros. Boom. Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being on here. You're a beautiful, amazing woman, and I'm so honored to call you friend. Thank you so much.
As are you. And I adore you. And I can't wait to squeeze you.
I know, in real life, but this has been so fun. And thank you, everyone. I've been watching the comments. There hasn't really been questions. A lot of gratitude for both of us. So thank you, everyone that's watching now. In the future, if you want to reach out to either of us at any time, and have way too much fun being you and changing the world. Bye-bye.